welcome to the JTM Community Podcast, where we are creating a community that you can bank on. I'm your host, Jason Melvin. Today we are graced yet again. She's becoming a bit of a frequent flyer and kind of a bit of a co-host at this point, my sister, Tasha Melvin. Before we get into today's topic that you had all voted for, which is the concept of change, going through some of the formalities, of course. Go ahead and check out j-tm.community/podcast to put in your votes. Send in any questions, concerns that you may have, topic ideas that you would like to have addressed on the podcast. If we get enough of those, we're going to do a bit of a Q&A, have a couple of different guests that are eager and waiting, just needing to get enough feedback to really make that valuable for folks. If you are interested in touching base with me privately, personally for advancement advising, you can do that through the website there as well. There's additional resources, both nationwide as well as in the Mount Pleasant community. So give those a look as well. And of course, TikTok, it's in the upper right-hand corner of the site. The link, it is not about the videos that I post. Those are just reminders, updates of new episodes going live and topics. It is the liked videos where you'll find a lot of wonderful content creators for inspirational, motivational, empathetic humor that'll hopefully really cause some inspiration or touch your heart in whatever ways that you're needing that day. Without further ado, we will dive right in. A little bit of a background in case this happens to be your first podcast that you're listening to. Tasha is a mother of three, two grown adult children, one out of the home, one in the home, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit today because that applies to change. She is born and raised, and for the most part has stayed in the Port Huron area. Also newly engaged, which I'm sure will be on today's topic of change. Has been a wonderful challenge and support throughout our lives, more so in our older teen years. I would say our relationship had become much more supportive for one another. So let's dive in. When you think of change, what comes to mind for you?
Growth.
I like it. Mm-hmm. When you say growth, so much can be implied by that. What do you mean by?
Well, so I thought a little bit about change, of course, before the podcast.
Yep.
Things around us are always changing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But change, we take on change the best in moderation, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So when things happen quickly and unknown, those are usually, we see those as bad changes, right?
Mm-hmm. Too much too fast gets overwhelming.
It's negative, mm-hmm. you know, a death, a breakup, a loss of a job, anything that's unexpected. Those are negative.
So change is best when you boil it like a frog.
There you go. Boil me like a frog, baby.
When change was the topic that was voted on, and we chatted about this, which is why I called you right away, is because I was flooded with actually a conversation that we had the day before of how you had handled something which was very, very different than years past. But I want to give a little bit of context because your life has, especially the last 4-ish years, has been an insane whirlwind of change after change, some good, some bad. And I want to start with the most tangible, which is health. Yep. So Tasha, and please fill in the blanks, but Tasha has struggled with health issues. It was years ago. You had your first seizure. I remember being in the...
It was a stroke.
Stroke. Thank you. Being in the garage at mom's house. Mm-hmm. You're a stubbornly independent. You think you're Wonder Woman. I'm putting words in your mouth.
I am.
And okay. And that's how you like the world to perceive you. So when we were sitting at the table playing cards and shit, and like abruptly you changed and said like I got to go to the hospital, was when stuff really kicked off. It seemed like that was a one-off at the time, but over the years you had found out a lot more. So let's start with that if you want to give some additional context there.
So even if we go, so that my original stroke, my first stroke, TIA, mini stroke, happened in the end of, it was December of 2012. And at that point, they had deemed that I was a smoker and on birth control. So come off the birth control. At this time, me and Jocelyn's dad, we weren't talking. So let's not forget this other change that comes after this, right? Me and Jocelyn's dad, we were split up since 2010. He found out I was in the hospital. We ended up having a couple of drinks at a bar shortly after. By the end of January, I'm pregnant. And actually, it was
Josiah.
That's with Josiah.
Yep.
And that actually is a lot shorter of a time period than 1 month. I was off my birth control, I believe, the day before Christmas, and I would have gotten pregnant New Year's. So everybody's like, oh my God, she had a stroke and was out drinking 6 days later. Well, again, I am Wonder Woman, and that's what happens. Wonder why. So
or you're just dumb.
yeah, it's all on perception.
There it is.
So that was the first change. When the stroke happened initially, I'm like, holy hell, I'm 29 years old, and what's going on? What's wrong with me? Right. So you deal with that. Well, then there was, those couple days where me and the ex, we weren't even working on a relationship. We strictly were just fooling around. And now I'm pregnant with a man who, let's be honest, he's not a good dad. He disappears. He does what he wants. We won't go into that one. So here I am in 2013 now, and I'm not even enjoying my pregnancy. I just feel like I'm carrying a consequence. And here I am, how selfish of me that I'm bringing this other kid into this world to be fatherless and to deal with another 18 years of bullshit and, pardon my French. So again, those two things, they were quick, they were unexpected, they weren't planned. The day that I had him, Josiah, which was the end of September, which was the end of September, that all changed. That little consequence, he was born, they set him on me, and everything changed. I loved this kid as much as I loved Josiah or Jocelyn and Tyler, if not more. And I don't know if that was because I thought that I was going to feel a different type of way with this child.
I think it was a bit of a clean slate for you.
Right. And don't get me wrong, Josiah's an asshole. We know that. But he's my asshole. And the reason why he's an asshole is, I think, because he's my kid that is so much more like me than the other two.
It's also what you asked for. You literally asked for that. I remember that conversation.
I wanted a kid who had fire, right? He needed fire, strong-willed, and my other two, I mean, they're doing great. We'll speak on that later. But they're more of the follower, right? Go with the flow. They don't have that fire, where I don't know. And unless you're in that situation, you don't understand it. Right. So those were the first two things, was 12 and 13. Both were horrible incidences. And now I look back, and without that first stroke, I wouldn't have had Josiah. But he's my world. He's the last child in the house. The last to grow up. He is challenging. He is smart. There are so many things that I've grown by him, and I think we all do as parents having kids. we think, you know, oh, well, we can teach them how to tie their shoes and walk and talk and blah. We as parents learn so much more from our children than,
oh gosh, yeah,
than what we give them.
I think it's important to also recognize you as a parent and a person were in two very, very different places from when you had Tyler and Jocelyn, and from by the time you had Josiah. We're talking there's almost a decade in there.
Well, there
is a decade.
Yes. So between Jocelyn and Josiah, there's 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
Between Josiah and Tyler, there's 13.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got pregnant with Tyler, you know, I'm 16, still in high school. So, I mean, there's the whole young pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
You know, a child having a child. Well, then by 19, I was having Jocelyn,
Mm-hmm.
still a child having a child. So I was always the young mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt that I was judged based on being a kid having a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I was very strict when it came to my kids. You know, their manners were great. They kept, the house was clean. It was immaculate, but I was always trying to control everything. You know, my
You're
kids
dealing
never
with your own shit, your own anxieties and all of that. And that was your way to take control. Might not have been the best way, but that was the situation for sure.
Absolutely. But now I'm not the oldest parent, but I'm on the older end of having a first grader.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I walk into the class and I'm like, oh, look at these kids with kids, you know. But there's so much more, like, I'm more laid back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about letting him make his choices. You know, before, like, I wanted to do everything for my kids. I wanted to solve all their problems. And I still harbor some of that. But with him, it's like, well, you know, as a baby, oh, he's going to pull that TV down on him. Yeah, he's only going to do it once, you know, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole different mindset. Financially, I was more stable with Josiah. I could do more. I could give more. Mentally, I was clearer at the age to have Josiah. But I'm not saying anything wrong about young parents either, because there were pros of being a young mom with Tyler and Jocelyn. I could rip and run. I could keep up. I was, you know, we did more things. I was more active. You know, there was that aspect of it too.
Sure.
So it's been a beautiful thing to be on both sides of the parenting spectrum.
Yep. Very different in some ways, similar in some, but at the end of the day, your maturity level has, and the growth that you have had, has allowed you to be a different kind of parent. And I would argue a better parent, a more present parent.
I would agree with you. I would say that I am a better parent now. Mm-hmm. Thanks to my older two kids. You know, they kind of helped write the book, you know, and they're at the age now where, you know, they may do things and I'm like, they're probably doing that because I did this, you know, and now I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that one, you know.
And like you were saying, as much as it is a parent's job to kind of educate and help their children grow, in return they help you grow, which Tyler and Jocelyn contribute to that a lot. Absolutely.
So, you know, that was the first bit of change. And I mean, we could go back my entire life, but let's not do that. So then let's go back. Let's go to 2018, 17. So 2017, we moved out of town, moved out here to the country. Was dating a gentleman at that point. Mom got sick going into 18. Mom got sick, found out she had acute myeloid leukemia. At that point, now I move her into my house. Just started a new job that year, by the way. Started a new job in April for Hannah Montia State Farm. Then
like a good neighbor.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there with the girl in what is it, 4C? Can I get a hot tub? No? Okay.
I have no idea what you just did.
Okay, you'll have to look at
I will. I'm going to think you're crazy before that.
Can I get a hot tub?
I will look it up.
They're the old ones. Yeah, now I want to talk about the commercial, but we won't do that.
So what you were saying is I had brought mom into the home.
Yes, brought mom into the home, moved Jocelyn out of her room, had my mom set up all in the front of the house.
It's so my brother, but your mom, apparently.
Yeah, our mom. You have a brother. We have a mom. Anyways, so that was the first change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was quick. And I'm like, it's overwhelming. It's bad news, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she moves in. That relationship that I was in ended. Going through doctor visits and not knowing what's going on. She's diagnosed. My job thankfully was allowing me to work from home. I didn't know when I could work. I'm missing out. My kids are missing out on me. I'm missing out on my kids. I'm missing out on work. There's no balance there. Then she fell and got into another relationship after that. Then she passed, and she didn't pass. Mom didn't pass due to the acute myeloid leukemia. She passed due to a fall after beating the leukemia.
Mm-hmm. And she fell at the hospital.
Right. But as she's sick, you're kind of going through the grieving motion of, okay, well, she's probably not going to make it. She had tons of other health conditions, and not really a fighter. And I know she got very, very angry with me when I told her that, because she said, if I ever had to do this again, I wouldn't. But that's because she's not a fighter. And bring this topic back up, because when it comes to changes, there's 3 types of people that I believe. So I'll touch base back on that here in a little bit. So she passes, and that was in December. Now I'm dealing with her estate, her stuff, siblings, losing relationships there, with family members.
Can I distract you just for a second?
Yeah.
You were talking about the whole process with mom, and it wasn't a short process. So she was sick for quite a while, and dealing with it in treatment, and like what that had taken. There were a lot of conversations that happened, fears, concerns, which I know had taken a toll. As you said, she actually beat the illness and then passed away from a fall, and that acknowledgement that she wasn't a fighter. So it wasn't an immediate loss. It was, as you said, even while she was alive, we're going through like the grieving process, right?
Right, but then once she beat it, right?
Yep.
She got to ring that cancer-free bell. That's my last treatment. So now we're like, holy shit, she made it. Yep. And then what was it? A week or two after that, I get a phone call 3:00 in the morning. So yeah, there was a grieving process, but the death of it is still shocking.
Yep.
But not as shocking as, I have a healthy mom and boom, she's killed in a car accident.
The reason why I wanted to rewind that a little bit is when we started this conversation off and I asked you about change, and you said change is best dealt like boiling a frog. What if that process is what you and mom both needed and was God's way to boil that situation like a frog? Instead of she's sick, she falls, she's gone.
Well, hang it. I do believe that. And I won't get to the spiritual sense of God
Sure. Yep.
You know, because that's based on everybody's belief.
Yep.
But I do believe that things happen for a reason. So even that situation in itself, and I will try to make the story as brief as possible. So I started a new job in April with Hannah. Hannah also lost her mom due to cancer. Hannah and I have never really sat down and discussed her regrets of when mom was sick. And I may be putting words in her mouth, but this is how I'm taking this in. And I apologize, Hannah, for throwing you out there.
This is how you viewed Hannah's situation.
This is how I viewed it.
Yep.
Well, when mom got sick, Hannah's like, do what you have to do. I don't want you to regret anything. If you can make it into work, you make it into work. If you can get on the computer during the day, you do that. I know you're good for it, Tasha. We'll figure it out. Now, remind you, I started work with Hannah in April. May, June, July. I worked for this woman for 3 months. And she gave me that trust, right? So now I'm already struggling with the aspect of work because I know I'm going to get fired. Anywhere you work, you're going to get fired. You know, yeah, I can't take time off the way that I did. She pushed so hard for me not to have any regrets. Okay. But even before that, so me and mom and I fell out the year prior. There was a situation where money was stolen. She had a lot of people living in her home. And money came up missing, and me and my son were accused of it. The only working people at that point were accused of taking money.
And you guys weren't in her home. Just
we were not.
You were not.
We were not in her home. But
Mm-hmm.
she did come and babysit for me, every day, you know, Monday through Friday. But that was hurtful. So at that point, you know, mom pretty well told me, you know, and I went over and above in the fact of, well, I'll show you my bank statements. I'll show you this. Like, I didn't do that. You can't treat me like shit because you don't know you can't go around treating everybody like shit because one person did you wrong and you don't know who did it.
Yep, so she was treating everybody like they did.
Right. And so she was like, I told her, I said, well, when I prove to you that I didn't take it, then I want you to apologize. And she says, I'm not apologizing for shit. Okay, then we're done. And that's my boundary. Like, I'm not going to allow you to come into my house and watch my kids and treat everybody like shit because you're pissed off, but it ain't nobody here that you're pissed off at.
Yep. And openly not take any accountability for that. Yes.
So there's more to that whole topic there as well. But it doesn't really have to do with changes, but we can, you know, it
does have a lot to do with change because that situation altered a relationship entirely. I mean, the police were
my kids lost their grandma that they saw 5 days a week. We kind of grew up, if you can't trust your parent, who do you trust? But to an extreme to where the police are calling my job and I work with financial services. That's a huge issue for me. That's a problem. That's my livelihood. But even after she passed, I had spoke with people, got to be careful with that, with people who she's had a conversation with about that whole situation. And she would go to say, well, I knew Tasha could handle the pressure. And I was hoping that one of the other people would say, it wasn't her, it was me.
She was putting a good quality character on somebody who didn't have it because they wouldn't have stolen the shit in the first place.
Right. So that was a huge issue. We didn't speak for months. But then when she got sick, we were just starting to talk again. Yeah. When she got sick. So that whole frog in the water, you know, she gets sick, I move her in. I mean, honestly, she was to a point where she started telling us kids she loved us. I can't tell you when I heard that as a kid.
I don't think she ever had. I have no memory of.
No, it was, I mean, she would tell my kids, all right, good night, I love you. And that's not who we got as mom. So it was nice. It helped with that, with any regret that I would possibly have about it. And really, I gave her I have no regret when it comes to Mom. I do feel that I gave her, sorry, I bumped my screen. I gave her the best.
Trying to get your good side.
Oh, well, that's dumb.
You're so dumb.
That's all this body. So it did help when we lost her that I didn't have that regret. And my kids, my kid Jocelyn, she remembers it. Jocelyn was able to help her out. And what's crazy now is Jocelyn works with people like that. And they're older, but Mom was a lot like an elderly person when she got sick. So I do think that influenced Jocelyn's job choices as well. So that's her change. But then when Mom passed, I don't think that it hurt, but not like if we didn't have the moments before, that
was almost provided an opportunity to have conversations and some version of closure on different things that had happened over the years. Sure.
Absolutely. Like I don't regret anything. And it gave me hella good stories, that I could share with everybody, but I'm not going to share that now, but maybe you guys will be lucky enough to hear it one day.
That's on your OnlyFans.
So she goes on to pass. I fall out with Little Dale.
Yep.
There's the hopeful for rekindling with siblings. It never happened. I believe people ended up showing true colors. And that's okay. That's their choice. Shortly after that, I got engaged. Now the relationship that I was in as Mom passed, was the wrong person, wrong time, or no, wrong person, right time. When we originally hooked up, we would have hooked up regardless. I wouldn't have stayed then.
Yep. But he provided a level of comfort to you, whether it was right or wrong or healthy or not, but comfort in a moment that you were incredibly vulnerable.
Needed it. I needed it. And I'm thankful for that. Right. To be completely honest with you, there was a lot of drinking, after I lost Mom. It started off with, him picking me up at the hospital with my favorite drink. Here, I'll drive. If you want to talk, we can talk. If not, hey, we can ride in silence. You want music, whatever it is that you need. And that's what I needed at the moment. But I became very unhealthy. Mentally became very unhealthy, became very codependent. But this is where I'm starting to heal from it and starting to dig into why. And the reason is I allowed certain things to happen in that relationship because it felt like home. But not the home that everybody thinks. It's not me and Dad throwing a ball out back.
It was familiar dysfunction, familiar chaos.
Absolutely. Me walking on eggshells, that felt like home. That's what we're used to. The mental abuse, it was nothing at 12 years old to be called a whore or a skank, or you're just like your fucking mom. I was used to that. Even though I know it's wrong, it was a sense of home. Weird way of thinking. And I never connected those until just recently. So
very recently, we just chatted about it within the last, I don't know, like month or two.
Right. But it's all starting to make sense. you know. So anyways, we got engaged. We were engaged in April. We're supposed to get married, I believe, the following May. February then of 20. So this is now the year that we were supposed to get married. I have a stroke. Second stroke. But it's been years since I had my first one. I go to the hospital and they're like, hey, you have a hole in the top part of your heart. We have to set you up for surgery. So I had a PFO closure. It's just a little, it's a little device that goes between the top two chambers and kind of plugs from the blood going across when it should go down, over and up. So they're like, that should be your problem. All right, great. I'm cured, right? 2 weeks. Well, actually, before I had the surgery, I probably had 2 or 3 strokes.
They started happening a lot more frequently.
Yeah. And the doctors are going, you're way too young for this. I was not on birth control, but yes, I was a smoker. They're like, you need to stop smoking. You're way too young. I mean, literally, I'm on the cardiology floor and everybody up there was over 70 years old. It's kind of like, well, why are you here? But they're like, hey, we figured it out. We're going to fix it. Go on with things. Perfect. So, I heal well, move forward, but there is that scare of, okay, I need to prepare myself for not being around for my kids. We don't know what's going on, but, I had so much faith that, hey, I'm going to have this heart surgery and everything's going to be fine. 2 weeks. Well, I had my heart surgery on March 6th. And 2 weeks after that, I had one of the bigger strokes. Now all of a sudden, everything that you told me that was going to be fixed isn't fixed. Everything that I thought was going to be okay, it's not going to be okay. On top of that, by the end of that March, the person that I was engaged to became physical in front of my kids. We'll leave it at that. The police were called. There was drinking involved. We rekindled after that. So here it goes. The bottom's coming out, right? Then I start making excuses of my codependencies. And he's like, I'm never going to drink again. He went to AA. He went to therapy. He was put on medication. Like everything that I thought would fix that. But I wouldn't tell him that, right? Because he needed to do this on himself, for himself. But I didn't, but I still continued to press charges. If you do wrong, that's on you. And as a mother, there's consequences and repercussions for your actions. But I didn't realize how toxic yet. At that point, I still didn't realize how toxic everything was. But I do believe I started becoming healthier where it came back to me, hey, Tasha, you're drinking way too much. Your daughter's mentioned something to me. At that point, I'm like, whoa, like, what am I doing? So the moment that I started becoming healthier mentally, the worst things got physically at home. So needless to say, August. So at that point, engagement's off, right? Marriage is off. He goes to jail. I believe it was the end of August. On top of that, the younger 2 kids' dad goes to prison. So there's another huge change that my daughter's dealing with. And
with those changes for them, for the household, there's also a financial change because now you go from 2 income to a singular income.
Well, hang on, we had 3 incomes.
True, if you count Josiah's child support in that way.
I had child support, which I mean, it was a good amount of money. My significant other's paychecks. Now I mean, I'm losing thousands of dollars a month. So you have the financial stress of that. You have the physical stress of, hey, now I have to do everything by myself. But then you have the mental stress and anguish of, okay, not only am I dealing with my shit, but I got to deal with my kids' shit.
Yeah,
and at that time, Josiah just started seeing his dad after 7 years. So now there's, okay, well, you met your dad, you've seen him a couple times, and now he's gone. He's in prison now. But hold on, because the guy that was living here too, he's gone as well. So, I mean, constant change, right? And when I think about it now, it just makes me sick to my stomach. Like, and it isn't even for my sake. It's for the kids' sake, because it wasn't until just now that I realized, holy shit, they had a lot going on. So my significant other, he goes to jail, and it wasn't until he went to jail where I could completely back up away from the situation and go, what the hell are you doing? Because the accusations still kept going. It didn't matter about the medication. It didn't matter about the drinking. It's just who he was. And at that point, you know, I've been a mom now for 22 years. And for 20 years of it, my only goal was to not be my mom. And I became my mom. I mean, she wasn't a drinker, but I mean that in the sense of, you know, allowing a man to disrespect me in front of my kids, allowing a man to be physical to me in front of my kids. And I know that hurt, because I was that kid that got to witness that. We were those kids that couldn't wait for this man to get out of the house. And here I am putting my own kids through that and making justification for that.
And inviting it back into the home. And I remember we were all walking down the road, and you and him were talking about, oh, well, you know, you could still do the wedding, but do it this way. And I'm like, whoa. It's not about COVID and the wedding. It got called off for other reasons. Let's not push this off on COVID. Yep.
We didn't get married because you're abusive. It had nothing to do with COVID.
Yep. COVID was just a handy excuse, to make it more understanding for other people.
Well, I didn't have to go and explain to everybody, hey, you know, he whooped my ass. And then I have to explain, hey, I'm the dumbass that brought him back, thinking everything was going to be different. But it was just it's who he is. I wish him the best. It just won't be with me. We're on two different playing fields. When I could be toxic and unhealthy, great. But that's not who I am.
When did that start to change for you? I know it was a bit of a transition. I remember even riding with you, being at the house, and there's a few times where I challenged you with your interactions with him, even when he was in jail, with like various things going on. And I was like, hey, and I mean, I can give specifics, but I don't feel I'll give one. We were in the living room, and Josiah was wanting to play a game with you. I think it was Fortnite. And you had the controller on your lap, but you weren't engaging with him, and you were texting this person who I don't know.
He's in jail.
Yeah, he's in jail. I don't know how that worked. I think you said there's some kind of platform, and I had acknowledged it then, like, hey, because what became obvious is as much growth as I had seen, you were still being drawn into like the shit, if you will. Like you were still taking that bait.
So, and that's exactly what it was, is solely being baited. I had officially ended things about a month into his sentence. But remind you, his stuff was still at my house.
Yep.
Deep down, I knew that it wasn't going to work. But it wasn't, you know, everybody's like, oh, well, you guys aren't only together because he was physical. No, let's be honest. As a woman who's been in several different instances, several different relationships with domestic abuse, it doesn't happen overnight. And when you finally break free of that and you look back, it starts very gradually. Mm-hmm. It starts with maybe, an attitude on something that you've done, to name calling, to, let's be honest, at a point where you felt that you could be abusive, I no longer loved me. Mm-hmm. I thought that's what I was worthy of. I thought that's what I deserved, because I've had right? I had good relationships before him, and maybe they were too good for me. Maybe this is just what I deserved, right?
Yeah, it made it acceptable for you.
Right. Well, and, I can go back years before then in a relationship where I asked mom, hey, this is going on at home. This person put his hands on me, blah, blah, blah. And mom's answer was, well, stop being a bitch. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to come out of a normalized situation and realize it's not normal. Mm-hmm. And again, that's where the growth came from, is my kids. But to answer your question, when did I realize that?
Because something changed.
It was, so I believe when I was still being baited in, right? Mm-hmm. I believe it was a closure situation. We were arguing. It was, I can't just say it was one thing. Mm-hmm. It was everything. When he went to jail, he showed me everything that I needed to know. Mm-hmm. The accusations are just who he is. It didn't matter what I did. It wasn't good enough. And at a point where I lost all of me to you, to save you, to help you, and that's not good enough. And then you pull that person out of the situation, and I'm realizing, like, look, I'm losing time with my kids. Me and my daughter's relationship is shit. That's my fault. It's not this man's fault. It's my fault, because this is what I'm allowing, and what you allow will continue.
Oh, sure. I want to kind of take a small detour to for the sake of clarity. Yesterday we were chatting, and you had given this example of writing something on a piece of paper, putting it close to somebody's face, and backing up as a metaphor for seeing the struggle to see the forest through the trees kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What I hear you saying really is, by him up until the moment, so prior to him going to jail, the two of you are working on things. You're telling yourself a lot of, I'll use your word, excuses of why that was acceptable. You're trying to hold accountability, continuing through the legal aspect, but you were excusing a lot of things that had happened. In the moment he went to jail and was out of the home, the manipulation couldn't be as impactful on the daily, and that piece of paper was slowly backing up.
I'm going to
see it better.
I'm going to be very honest. Probably for the first time on this podcast, to everybody about the situation. Mm-hmm. When we got back together, mm-hmm. I knew he was going to jail. We didn't get back together for me. We got back together because I felt bad for him. I'm like, well, if it's a mental illness, maybe I can help.
That caretaker fixer.
It really was. Mm-hmm. I knew when he came back, I knew it wasn't going to work out. And I know that's wrong of me. And I know that's all my fault. But that's what happened. I know once those certain things happen, my kids will never look at you the same. Mm-hmm. I will never look at you the same. I mean, for God's sakes, I don't even have the same kitchen table at my house, because every time I walk past that kitchen table, I remember that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I knew it was going to happen. And I don't know if it was a safety factor of, hey, I can leave when he's in jail. Mm-hmm.
I could see fear playing a role into that.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily what's the case. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think there was fear, there was care, I felt bad for the little boy in him. Mm-hmm. Not a great childhood, according to his stories. Now, what's true anymore, I don't know.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things that were going on, but with him out of the situation, I could continue to be healthy. I could continue, yeah, of course, I see that tree, right? But as you back up, I could be here. Well, what is that? Well, I don't know. Oh, well, maybe it's a piece of skin. Oh, well.
Butt crack.
Oh, and the further you get away, you're like, oh, it's a hand. Oh, wait, that hand's connected to Tasha. Oh, wait, that Tasha's in this room. It just keeps going, and you get the whole picture, not just what's here. So that did continue to allow me to make the break, make the change. And even after the fact, even after he got out, I was still trying to help.
Down to the towels.
Down to the fucking towels. What an asshole.
There's a whole story to that, but we'll keep moving.
What about the hammers? I know you got 5 hammers. And it was just it continued to be give me when I already did everything I possibly could for you. I can't do anymore. So it came to a point where I'm a firm believer, no communication ends communication. I stopped communicating. The moment that I stopped communicating, now you're threatening to sue my job, and you're threatening to do this, and you're threatening. Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm done. And I try to tell everybody, I'm a lot like a light switch. That's toggling. Once it toggles, once it's off, it's off. It just takes a lot to actually make that click. You're a lot better at that click than I am. I toggle for way too long before I shut off.
Years.
Yes, absolutely. I tell everybody, I said, my brother has great boundaries. Maybe too many. I don't have enough.
Sure.
You tolerate no bullshit.
People are good for you or they're not. And that doesn't mean they can't have bad days, right?
Right. No, absolutely.
But if somebody is a detriment to your life, you don't have to be angry or hateful or hurtful. No. I'll use our brother as an example.
But you don't have to be involved.
Yes. Yep. You can create a healthy distance. You can stop the engagement and move on. Like I harbor hate for well, that's not true. There's one person that on this planet that I have a certain feeling, but it's not hateful. It's not hurtful. It's I believe this person is truly evil from what I know of the person. But even the shit that we had been through,
Do I know the person?
Do you know the person?
Yeah.
We've had the conversation before. But for even the people who have hurt me significantly, I harbor no hate or ill will towards them. Again, if we use our brother as an example, you feel a certain kind of way. I don't feel that way. And It's not out of, I hope the best for everyone. I respect everyone and have a level of respect and want them to be better, because a happy person is just a better impact on the world and the planet, on their own families, their own friends. At the same time, I'm not going to forget the things that have happened, and I'm going to have a healthy boundary with that.
And see, with me, I guess I don't hate anybody, right? And I don't wish bad upon anybody. But if there's these people that my switch is off with, and a stranger, and they both need help, but I can only pick one, I'm picking the stranger every time.
Sure. That's acceptable. I mean, let me change that. It's not for me to accept anything. That is understandable for me. I can understand that.
Yeah, it's
and
not.
I would be the same if there was somebody. Well, I'll use Dale because we've talked about him before. Our Unc Dad, if you will, growing up. Whole nother story for anyone listening, but. And we've chatted about this. If there was two people both on fire and you could only take one piss, who would you piss on? would probably be the stranger.
Well, it depends on how much alcohol I drank.
So you said not hateful. There's a difference between putting something out or fueling the flame.
Well, I thought we were just talking about pissing.
Getting back on topic, you're nasty. The idea of you were talking about healthy boundaries and kind of that acknowledgement in the light switch that there's been most of your life, I would say up until very, very, very recently, where you've had more control over the toggle, where it doesn't sit in that gray area where all the damage and the excuses and that happen, where you can acknowledge it a lot faster.
So let's go back to that same thing. Okay. So I'm 38 years old. I'll be 39. And our dad, we share the same dad. We haven't had much communication as a kid. It depended on, his wife of the moment and, whether he wanted to be involved or not involved. And I know you have a little bit more of a relationship or rapport with him as young, but being younger, you guys would video game and stuff together, right?
Sporadically, not much. He was, even to me, was a very distant uncle. There was never a fatherly connection. It would be like gaming with a stranger, really. It's just
I know
family.
When mom passed, right? And I know a lot of women that have absentee fathers deal with this as well.
Sure.
You always want that acceptance from your parents, either way. But with an absent father, it was kind of like he would go for years and wouldn't reach out, and then he'd reach out and I would respond. But it was never as a father conversation, right? But even then, and I look back, because this is something that just happened recently, I would look back at our messages and I would always say, oh, I don't harbor any bad feelings. People go through things. It is what it is. Just be the best person that you can be. And I'm giving this grown man pep talks about how it's okay. No, Tasha, be real with yourself. It's not okay. And let's really dig into the nitty gritty of it. Growing up in an abusive home where he was absent, in my head, all my friends, their dads were in the picture. And, here I'm waiting for my dad to show up and save me. And he never did. And even as we continue to get older, there was a lot of role reversals to where I had to act like the parent to my father, even as a kid. When mom passed, hey kid, I know you're going through some rough things, and I appreciated him reaching out to me.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And we were supposed to meet up for coffee 3 times. 3 times I allowed this man to set it up and cancel. Set it up, not show up. Set it. Okay. Again, here I am toggling, because if that was anybody else, I'd have been done. Just because that this person has a title, right? I don't owe him anything.
You had a hope for what could be.
And that's, I've battled with that my entire life. So then he
that's the theme throughout all of your relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So he recently reached out to me, and I don't even remember what exactly triggered it. And I'm like, you know what? Enough's enough. I don't wish you any bad. I would say I love you, but I love you as a person, just the same as I would love a stranger in a grocery store. But I don't know you any different than the stranger at the grocery store. And I had to let him know, hey, look, enough with the excuses. I do forgive you, but I forgive you for me, because I don't hold on it to any bad feelings. If you can't make it right, the little girl inside of me is hurt. This is what I've lived through, but you wouldn't know that because you were absent. And it was respectable. I didn't say it mean. It was just, hey, there's no need for you to reach out to me. We're strangers. And that's what we'll always be. There's never going to be a relationship. There's never going to be a communication. I mean, this is a man that, you know, we're on the same Facebook page, and he'll tell his stepkids how much he loves them. But we're never tagged in it. You know, it's that type of stuff. I don't have to be involved in that. That's just continuing to set myself up to be hurt.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was good. It was good to finally get the closure of, hey, you know, I don't need to feed your ego anymore.
What fueled that change? Because you handled it, and I would say that you handled it very, very well, but very, very different than you always had handled it before. So what fueled is it the boiling of the frog, where it was thing after thing after thing, the three cancellations that,
you know, but the cancellations were years ago. I think I just got to a point in my life, and it could be with the health, right? A point in my life where life's too short to try to drag people around that are not beneficial. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be beneficial, right? But they have to bring you something. You have to, there has to be growth somewhere. Like, when does it stop where I stop allowing people to continue to hurt me and be okay with it?
Where you had an understanding of it, with life being short and valuable, that you are worth investing in people that invest in you. Absolutely.
But that all goes to self-worth as well. I would invest into anybody just in hopes that they would invest back. No, honey. I'm sorry. I'm worthy of you investing in me. You know, and I didn't look at it like that. It has a lot to do with self-worth and self-esteem. I'll be honest, I'm the fattest I've ever been, but honey, I'm happy. You know, I said I was fat, not ugly. It's just one of those things. Like, I don't know what changed. And over, I would really say the last year, over the last year, I feel different. I love me. I know a little bit more of my self-worth. No, close the door. Thank you.
Josiah?
Yeah.
Wanted a snack?
No, he wanted to go outside, but it sounds like it's raining. You know, so there goes to that point of, no, I'm worthy. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of people genuinely caring. And that's hard to break, but I can't tell you exactly when that clicked. So going back to health. So after my heart surgery, I continued to have strokes. Couldn't figure out what was going on. So now I've buried my mom, had my first heart surgery, ended an engagement in a relationship.
Started a new job.
In between, I have one kid that's moving out at the beginning of all this, and one that's getting ready to graduate at the end of all this.
Managing, so now all of a sudden, selling a home, taking over another home.
Oh, I mean, we could go on and on and on, right? So 11 mini strokes later, from March to August, September, October, all of a sudden, and I'm going from neurologist to this hospital to that hospital, and everybody's like,
in your pants,
shit my pants, piss my pants, drooling on myself. I mean, you name it, it happened.
Didn't you put a cat in the dryer? No,
I wouldn't put the cat in the dryer. I mean, if it got in the dryer by itself because it was warm.
Maybe it wasn't the cat. I remember you called me one day and you had it be like, my brain is not working. Like, I just did this thing. And I thought it was putting the cat in the dryer. I might be remembering that wrong. I really don't know. Say it.
Nope. I will not admit to animal cruelty in the lowest sense.
You didn't turn the dryer on, at least from what you had said, and the cat was still there. So
I still have my cat, everybody. Her name is now Fluffy. No, but I was doing a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I would go to work, and I would be driving to work out of, I don't know if it's muscle memory or whatever, and I'd have to call my boss, and I would say, hey, I'm going to be late. I don't know where I'm at. Mm-hmm. I would go to work, and they would allow me to take naps at work because I just couldn't stay awake. Mm-hmm. And migraines after migraines. And I remember my daughter saying to me, I can't wait for them to figure out what's going on because I can't wait to have my mom back. That's hurtful, you know? And as a single parent now I met this great doctor, and she was like, hey, this is your problem. I'm like, what? A year later? And you meet me one time and you tell us the problem?
Oh, you're breaking up. Hold up. Are you there?
Yep.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back. So okay. The folks wouldn't have heard the last 20 seconds.
Okay, so I met
a great doctor.
Met a great doctor, right? She meets me one time, and she's like, this is your problem. You need brain surgery. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean I need brain surgery? Well, I was diagnosed with Chiari Malformation, which did show up in my previous MRI a year before, but none of the doctors picked up on it. You have Chiari Malformation. What's happening is the tonsils of your cerebellum, which are in the back of your head, were going down into my spinal cord and almost choking out my spinal cord, which was causing these mini strokes, was causing lots of my issues. So now imagine my hesitation. My hesitation was, well, they told me I needed heart surgery. That didn't fix it. Now you're telling me you want to take out a part of my brain and my skull, and I'm going to be better? Are you sure? Well, I can't give you 100%. There was always two types of surgeries I'd never have, and that was back and brain. Because you always hear, like, you're not going to be normal, right? Mm-hmm. So I asked her, I said,
you already weren't fucking normal, though. So what did you have to
I'll
lose?
never be normal, honey. So it was to a point where I'm like, well, what if I don't have the surgery? Mm-hmm. And my thing was, well, one day you're not going to wake up. Or you're going to be a quadriplegic. Mm-hmm. You're going to lose function. Okay, great. Let's do surgery. But at that point now, single mom, mm-hmm. I'm one where I don't like other people to have to stress about me. So even when you came down to take care of me, that was huge for me to ask you, hey, Jay, I know I'm going to need you. Mm-hmm. Because it's the people that, you know, that I show when I show you, hey, you're needed, I need help. I'm trained to think, hey, I'm giving you ammo to hurt me later. So that's hard for somebody who's been independent and can do everything by themselves to ask for that. And I appreciate you more than you'll ever know for coming down and helping with these bratty ass kids.
Yeah, it was never even a question. I mean, you didn't even have to explain anything. You asked, yep. Tell me the time and we'll get it set up.
You sure did. Even the day before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. And I do have to give credit to my supervisor because she had brought up things that I didn't think of and was like, yeah, like if that's helpful, go. And I was like, yep, I'm out.
I mean, I even came home from surgery and had a freaking dishwasher.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, how great is that?
Kudos to Dakota. Thank you, buddy.
Right. I think the dishwasher was actually for Jocelyn, who was my previous dishwasher. So, you know, I go in and I have the surgery, but as I'm going into surgery, I'm beat down. I did a lot of reflecting previous to my surgery, on my job, on my relationships, on the lack of what I'm bringing as a parent to my children and to other people. And on top of it, I'm also feeling like I'm somebody else's problem now because I can't do certain things. So I go and I have the surgery and everything goes great. They anticipated I'd be off for 12 weeks. I returned to work, I believe at week 3. I haven't had many strokes since. I just had my second migraine since March, this morning. But other than that, I'm great. I can stay awake at work. And I feel good. I feel great. But I'll tell you what, me getting sick was the most humbling ass whooping I've ever had. And I don't know, again, that's the frog in the pot, right? Because I don't know if I didn't get sick, if I would be as humble as I am. Which then brings me to, after my surgery, everything is going good. I rekindle a relationship with the gentleman that I was with previously when we moved in this house. So him and I moved in this house together. And it started off as just friends, and we could be open and we could be honest. And when we ended again. It was abrupt. It was, you know what? That toggle switch for me. We couldn't get things back. There was no communication. I'm as stubborn as they come, and I was as independent as they come. And I'm not just saying in this relationship, but in most of my relationships, I have an issue with, I don't know the word, demasculating men, in a sense where if you can do it, I can do it better. I'm not going to ask you for help. I'm just going to do it myself. Well, at that sense, number one, I'm not saying it's bad for me to do everything myself, but when it's a partnership, you have to do things together. You have to communicate. And it just got to a point where there was no communication. And honestly, I wanted more than a roommate. And at that point, and I didn't realize this until, this year in conversation, here I am working this new job, and he's working himself to death in our first relationship. And he's like, well, you were working for State Farm, and I thought you wanted better. I thought you wanted more. But that was his perception of what he thought I wanted. But there was no communication for you to know that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, you guys never had those conversations of depth to actually understand each other and what.
Yeah. So me, I'm going, okay, well, you don't want to be here. You don't want to be with me. And let's be honest, my love language is quality time. I don't need quantity. I don't need you up my ass every day, all day, but I do need quality. And I wasn't getting that. And it depends on his day of what love language he is, because he's a man. And I think you guys are all batshit crazy.
Let's give a little context to that, because I know you don't really feel that way.
No, I really don't. I think we're still figuring out his love language. But I do know that the communication's better. I know that it took. He ended up in another relationship. I ended up in another relationship after us. And it was totally the opposite of the relationship that we had. So he was with me. I did everything for myself. He ended up with a girl who needed him to do everything. With him, I ended up with somebody who his relationship, he's nice. He's great. He can be an asshole. But I ended up with somebody who would give me the time, quantity, gave me the time, but was totally an asshole. It got to a point where I'm walking on eggshells. If I left work 2 minutes late, I had to speed so I didn't get questioned why I was 5 minutes late showing up from home. Oh, who were you with? Where'd you go? That's that type of thing, where my relationship with him previously, it doesn't matter what we do as long as we communicate, right? At the end of the day, I know that we're going to be home together. We're going to have dinner together, but I don't need to know your every move.
Yeah, you both kind of entered into relationships that served as growth to understand yourselves, which
absolutely
kind of brought you to now.
What it really was is it was a slap in the face. Oh, you didn't work out because of this, so let me give you the complete opposite. Well, now how bad are you? Right? So in having that conversation and being more open and more honest with each other, That's where we're at.
Go ahead.
This is a gentleman who was always there for my daughter, even when we weren't talking. I know he, even through everything, always loved my kids to a fault. And when we weren't together, that was an issue for me. But that was an issue for me because of not his baggage, but previous baggage. Well, why does somebody want anything to do with my kids? Because what my previous ex before him showed was, well, I only want something to do with your kids because that's a door open to you. So I stopped, like with Josiah and him, even after we split that first time, it was no, okay. You're done with Josiah, because if we have communication that about Josiah, that's really because you want communication with me. I don't know that was necessarily the case, but because of previous baggage, I couldn't adjust to that.
Yeah, you couldn't see it. Again, it's hard to see the forest through the trees kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely.
I want to kind of bring all of this together. Tell me what you think of this. This is something that I've always believed to be true, and I use it actually working with clients pretty often, especially being around here and living in the country a bit, right? Is life is a kind of a metaphorical crop, if you will. So there's a couple points throughout the year where out here it smells like shit, like absolute shit. And it's the idea that the farmers are fertilizing with shit, like just pouring shit on everything, right? And that's a lot of what life is the difficult things, the shit that you endure, the obstacles that we come across, and it comes in a variety of things: a broken relationship, the loss of a friend, of a loved one, struggle in the home, the loss of a job, struggles at work. When we can understand that is all fertilizer, right? You go through all of these experiences that have been difficult, and yep, it's easier to swallow when it's boiled like a frog, right? But the world doesn't always work that way. It doesn't work at our pace. But when we endure the things, get a little dirty, right? Get the fertilizer, that is when the farmers get the greatest yields, the greatest growth is, and the greatest harvest is through that dirt, through the shit, through the fertilizer. And over the last few years, I'm condensing it way down because it's been a literal lifetime. But with the health concerns, mom, the loss of mom, everything that came with that, the relationship over our whole life, and what that looked like towards the end, the finances, the impact on family, the separation, the end of an engagement, domestic violence, all of these things, right? And I'm saying this, and you already know this because we had the chat the other day, is how absolutely proud of you that I've become. And I've always been proud of you, but seeing you actually... Usually,
not always. Usually.
I'm always proud of you. I might not agree with your decisions. Seeing where you have actually applied the growth, and maybe it was their surgery, right? Maybe they actually fixed your fucking brain.
Yeah, no.
But seeing you actually apply the things in such a healthy way, and I'm not saying perfect, and we all are going to have our own struggles for sure, but seeing how you haven't just gone through this shit, you've allowed it through reflection, through growth, to fertilize you to live a better, a happier, mildly more plump life, right? Which even that being a motivator, we were talking about that just before we went live. So that is not a fat joke as much as an inside joke of the conversation that Tosh saw herself in a really important video. And
that I won't share.
That she won't share. But that had fueled her in a healthy way to want to be better and do better. And I think the important thing is not even just for yourself, but to make a change to help everybody in the home. Again, it's that you're applying the growth that you've had and not making the same kind of decisions you had in the past. So again, super proud of you.
Thanks.
I appreciate your willingness to, as always, to be vulnerable and talk about the many changes, super personal that's happened for you. I can tell you want to say something. Go ahead.
I do. And I know that I wanted you to bring me back to this.
The 3 types of people?
The 3 types of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to touch base with that.
Yeah,
when people think about change. And again, it goes to the farmer, right?
Mm-hmm. You
got the farmer who grows crops every year and produces great crops, regardless of the weather, mm-hmm. right? Those are your warrior mentalities, your fighters. You have so I have warriors, right? You have victims.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have people that are maintaining. They're not living. Life is living. They're alive, but they're not living. They're just kind of going through the motions.
Survival.
The basic survival, victim survival, and warriors. Mm-hmm. Okay. When it comes to a change, there's 3 types of mentality. It's the poor me, mm-hmm. which is your victim mentality.
You're suffocated by the fertilizer.
Yep. Then you have it is what it is. That's your they're surviving, merely surviving. It is what it is.
Would that be you most of your life? I would say us. Yeah.
Yep. I don't care either way. Mm-hmm. Whatever. Yep. Then you have your warriors, right? Your warriors. And I think that's where the health issue came in. Was, you know what? I got to fight. Right.
You were forced to be better.
I was exactly. Right. And I don't know that I've shared this with very many people. I was down so bad when I had my brain surgery. When I woke up from brain surgery, I was saddened. I was okay when I went in, that if I didn't wake up, I'd have been okay. Mm-hmm. We had the conversation of, hey, if I don't wake up,
yep, this is what needs to be done.
This is what needs to be done. Because at that point in my life, I was a cooked frog. I was done. Mm-hmm. The years leading up to that, I was to a point where I didn't care. And I went from being a survivor to falling back into that victim mentality mm-hmm. of, poor me, I can't take anymore, and then I woke up from surgery and I'm like, bitch, you're still here for a reason. Mm-hmm. You better figure that out. Yep. You have been through heart surgeries, through strokes, through getting your ass whooped I mean, physically, mentally. Like, if I could have been drugged down at any point in my life, it was those 2 years, right? I woke up, Jason, and I started loving me. That's awesome. I was going to make a change. It was like, and I had that clarity when I came home, right? Where I'm like, okay, great. My head's fine. I'm going to start working out. You even paid for beach bodies. Well, yep. Joke's on me because I moved too quick right now. And I'm still like, By the way, when we went to Tennessee, I have a bruise this big on my butt because I fell down the stairs. I would show you that, but not here.
I'm good. Here or otherwhere. I'm good. I don't need to see that.
But it's still to a point where, there's some uneasiness, mm-hmm. but it doesn't stop me, mm-hmm. And I would love to speak to anybody on any aspect of my life. Like my work, mm-hmm. I know I've been kicking ass at work. My home life, I know I've been kicking ass in my home life. My relationship, as far as like with a significant other, I know I'm kicking ass there. I know that the people that are important to me, I could use a little bit more help, more time in the day to reach out. Mm-hmm. But I genuinely feel like the people that I have surrounding me are the best group of people that I've ever had in my entire life. You know, it may not be many, but it's the people that they're part of my warrior pack. You know, the moment that I'm like, they're like, what are you doing? Get your ass moving. You know, and so that's what I mean. I just wanted to reiterate on the 3 people when there's changes. You know, anybody could have been like, oh, you know, go through the surgery and the, oh, poor me. And, you know, I've had doctors that have said, well, I'll help you file for disability. What? No, I don't need disability. And there may be a point in my life when I do need it.
Sure. Yep.
But right now I'm still in fight mode.
Yep.
You know,
I want to kind of end using that, but giving this idea, whether it's the ebb and flow, right? So you're not in one of those types, if you will, and that's where you're stuck. And you had mentioned like being in survival and then like falling back into victim and into warrior. And that's been kind of a pattern that we all do go through life. And it's awesome that you can identify that that moment that you woke up and you're like, hey, like this, like I'm going to be different. I'm going to be better, create a better life. I'm stealing from Steve Harvey. I heard him say once that anyone listening to this podcast, right? You have a 100% successful survival rate, 100%, right? No matter what life has thrown at you, no matter what has been done or said, or the damage, the dirt, the fertilizer, you are still here. A 100% success rate in surviving, getting through the shit. So the days that you feel like you can't, you already have.
Right.
You've made it. Right.
Yep.
And tomorrow can be a better day. Right. Doesn't have to be remarkably better where the world has changed. Right.
But why wait till tomorrow?
Yep.
The next 5 minutes can be better. You know, like we go through bad things, but you're in control. Like there's things that are out of our control. Right. Sure. But even out of everything negative, and we could go on about everything just over the last couple of years that I can look at, and we looked at it as a negative thing, right? But I can pull growth out of every one of those things.
Sure, that's
and that's what we have to do. You know, if there's a bad situation, pull the growth out of that and make that change.
I'm going to end this podcast with taking a jab at you. Take everything we had just talked about over the last 2 days and apply it to your relationship with your daughter. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We didn't touch on it, but I wanted to still plant that seed. And
absolutely,
we can, of course, chat more if you want. Thank you everyone for listening and indulging in a lot of our lives and a lot of Tasha's life. And of course, I appreciate your willingness to be honest, even though it potentially is damaging to you and brings things up. As you were saying just before we started, our conversations, though helpful in processing things, sometimes you get off of here and it feels like you could use a stiff drink. So knowing that is kind of this process, I truly do appreciate your willingness to be kind of exposed and vulnerable.
And honestly, like I know if my past can help anybody in their future or their current, to know like, hey, don't give up.
Yep.
You know, continue to fight, make that change, you know, to do it. If anybody can learn from my mistakes, or if anybody can even say, hey, I understand her, I get her, and look where she's at now. What can I do? If it can make anybody think, I mean, please, you know, that's why I'm here.
Absolutely.
You know,
I mean, if that's the whole goal of this podcast, is to hopefully make somebody's life a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Again, thank you. I am definitely proud of you. Super excited for what you're going to make your future. Most definitely. For everyone listening, go ahead and check out j-tm.community/podcast. Get in your votes for the next topics. They're going to be a little more, the schedule is going to be the same, but the voted topics are going to be a little bit different, kind of like our holiday episode that was not a voted for. It's kind of a bonus episode. We do have a couple more of those coming in the near future, but the votes are always there. Those topics will end up being an episode most definitely. Check out the website for additional resources, help, and support, whether it is nationally or in the Mount Pleasant, Michigan area. Of course, if you want to touch base with me, you can do that through the website as well for advancement advising. Hey, buddy, this is Josiah for anyone who may be watching. Additionally, of course, the TikTok. Again, not about the videos I make, but the liked videos specifically for that motivation, human connection, empathy, and inspiration. Thank you so much for joining me and for Josiah's very brief guest appearance.
We wanted a sandwich.
Nice. Awesome. All right, everyone. I hope you have if you're listening to this before the holidays, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season and that it's everything that you need it to be.